G'day and welcome to Media Tech Talk. I'm Daevid Richards. Advertising and media companies have never invested more in technology. Today on Media Tech Talk, we're joined by one of the true pioneers of premium programmatic video advertising in Europe. Before AI-driven media buying, before supply path optimization became an industry obsession, and before publishers started demanding more transparency on operational control over their monetization stacks, our guest was already helping shape the future of publisher monetization. Hervé Brunet is one of the best in the industry. As CEO of Pubstack, it's a fast-growing monetization intelligence platform helping publishers simplify and control increasingly complex advertising infrastructure. But many in the industry will also know Hervé as the co-founder and former CEO of Sticky Ads TV, one of Europe's leading premium video SSPs, which was later acquired by Freewheel and Comcast in a deal reportedly valued at over $100 million. Today, one of the biggest challenges facing publishers isn't just monetization, it's operational complexity. Managing wrappers, tags, SSP integrations, pricing logic, analytics, and downstream platform configurations that still often require heavy lifting from the engineering teams in the publisher stacks, which often slow the whole process down. Pubstack is helping democratize media monetization operations by giving publishers more direct operational control, reducing reliance on developers for the day-to-day management of complex advertising infrastructure and workflows that have traditionally required engineering support, including systems connected to tag management and monetization environment. So here's the question. As programmatic becomes more automated and AI-driven, why are publishers still relying on engineering teams to manage monetization infrastructure like tag managers? And how is Pubstack helping democratize more direct control over the ad stack and analytics? Hervé, welcome to the show. Whereabouts in France are you calling from today?
Yeah, I'm in Paris today. I was in New York last week.
Oh, wow. Is it good in Paris?
Yeah, the weather is really nice. It's actually very hot. It's over 30 degrees.
Thank you very much for sticking by in that very long intro. There's probably a lot of detail that we wanted to get to because Pubstack's really big in what the opportunity is and what it's offering into the local market here in Australia. But before we get into that, I just wanted to get into a little bit of your history. As I said in the intro, you co-founded Sticky Ads TV and helped grow it into one of Europe's leading video SSPs before it was reportedly sold for around $100 million US to Comcast/Freewheel. What originally drew you into ad tech and what made you come back to lead Pubstack?
Yeah, it's a long story. Actually, I'm a relatively newcomer into ad tech. Before that, I used to work for a US startup based out of the Valley in the US, and I was running Asia out of Hong Kong. So I have already ties with the APAC region way back. And we were selling routers to telcos. And back in 2008, there was a big milestone in the internet. It was the birth of YouTube. 2008, yeah, it makes us look very old. And basically, the internet flipped from text and image to video. And we witnessed that firsthand with our customers buying more and more of our gear, meaning routers, to cope with the traffic. So when I set out to start the business together with Jill, my co-founder, we were like, well, if we want to build something, it's got to be in video. Video is very, very hot. And then we had multiple ideas, and finally we ended up doing a video advertising play, and that became Sticky, which was one of the first video SSPs back in 2011.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you look back fondly on those days?
Yeah, it was good. It was. We were surfing a wave because video was new. Everybody wanted it. There was not enough inventory, so it was massive demand. So it was a fun ride. Absolutely lovely.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, Pubstack works with over 100 premium publishers globally and positions itself as a supply intelligence platform helping publishers simplify monetization, operations, and gain more control over the ad stack. For people who are hearing about Pubstack for the first time, what does the company actually do, and what's the core problem that it's solving for publishers?
Well, so the company is essentially dedicated to helping publishers. So we're a true supply company, software company. We're not monetizing inventory in any ways. And we have essentially two product lines. One is helping to improve operational efficiency for the publishers. And by operational efficiency, I mean time spent and also OPEXs, operational expenditures. And that's what we call the ad management platform. So it's really a software orchestration platform that manages the entire publisher stack from GAM, TAM, all the way to pre-bid. And the second product that we have is really here to help publishers extract more value from their inventory. It's called Spark, and that's really leveraging supply side signaling to drive more revenue and with a layer of intelligence on top of it.
Yeah. Do you want to take us through Spark a bit more? Because that's quite fascinating to dig into that a bit.
Yeah, so I mean, Spark is, I mean, the long story is I've been in the industry since 2010, and Programmatic started probably 5-6 years before we created sticky ads. And Programmatic was designed in a way that the entire decisioning was on the buy side. So the DSPs had all the decisioning power, and that entails essentially two levels of decisioning. One is what I would call campaign KPI decisioning, and the other one is decisioning on which media to buy, which impression to buy. I do think it's time to decouple those two layers of decisioning. The campaign KPI should remain on the buy side, but I do think the media packaging should be done on the supply side. If you think of it, the DSP is the furthest away from the supply. So why would it make the right decision? It's actually very ill-equipped in terms of supply signaling to decide which inventory is good or bad. On the contrary, the supply is very well equipped to make that decision. So I think we should decouple the two. And what we're trying to do is exactly that, bring the packaging, the media packaging decision back to the supply by leveraging supply side signal, first party signals that sits on the publisher's pages.
It's interesting to hear this because it feels like we're sort of swinging back on the pendulum sex that to a space that we were in maybe 10, 15 years ago, where the publishers and the advertisers had very separate ways of operating, and the technology that supported them was very different as well, sitting in different sides of the camp. How have you found the industry's reception to this piece that you're talking about with Spark?
It's been very good, extremely welcoming actually, because frankly, I'm going to give you an example. I built an SSP in 2010. All the country managers we've hired were dedicated to supply. So their customers were publishers. Back in those days, an SSP was building tech for the pubs. If you fast forward to today, most country heads of SSPs are mostly agency people. So you've seen even SSPs have changed their center of gravity towards the demand. So I think publishers are a bit abandoned here. Nobody is really building technology for them. And we are one of the few guys who actually believe there is value to be created for the publishers, and we hope to benefit from it. Why do we think that? Because of what I said earlier. The industry won't continue working and operating the way it is by combining those two decisioning layers strictly on the buy side. It needs to be separated out, even to the benefit of the buy side, because today the buy side is in a situation where they are unable to find certain type of audiences They are unable to find certain type of inventory because it's been deleted along the way, throttled. And that's a byproduct of header bidding, essentially.
Right. Amazing. Many publishers are still relying heavily on engineering teams to manage wrappers, tags, and, as I said in the intro, SSPs, and the integrations and monetization workflows that are around them. As Programmatic becomes more automated and AI-driven, why are we still seeing publishers operating this way, do you think? And how is Pubstack helping to democratize the direct control over the ad stack and analytics these days?
I mean, like I said earlier, many ad tech vendors have shifted their focus to the buy side. So publishers are left here to, the only option they have is to build their own software if they want to have control. We are offering an alternative to that, which is we give you the same level of control and possibly even more while reducing your operational expenditures. It's actually less expensive usually to take a software solution off the shelf than build your own and maintaining it and making sure it's cutting edge. That's exactly what we're trying to do here. And in the times like we are in right now, publishers are facing massive financial constraints and they have to make sometimes hard decisions. We can be a solution to alleviate some of those hard decisions, I would say. And there's also a technology aspect to this. Pre-bid was inherently, this is a little bit technical, but pre-bid was inherently built as a client-side solution. Gradually, the world is shifting towards a server-side solution. Building a server-side solution for a publisher is extremely costly because you need to maintain an infrastructure globally because you have traffic globally. And that is very costly. One, if you want to reduce the cost, you have to implement very advanced algorithm like machine learning algorithm, which is not, expertise you find around the corner necessarily. And these are hard to implement and also costly to develop. So as we grow, as this industry is structuring itself towards a more mature pre-bid infrastructure, I think the way forward is to rely on specialized vendors.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. I'm going to pick you up on something you've said, that the Programmatic broke publisher value, which is a pretty bold statement from someone who helped build the ecosystem. What exactly broke, and can publishers realistically take that value back?
Yeah, so when I built it, I was part of the ecosystem indeed. But when I built sticky ads 10 years ago, header bidding did not exist. And header bidding set out with one promise, and that was the opportunity. The promise is to create an equal footing environment for all bidders, a fair environment for all bidders. But header bidding is an opportunity and a curse. And that's where it broke down. The curse is the following. Because we created this equal footing, if you have 10 SSPs competing on your page, it means that those 10 SSPs will receive the ad request. They will all process it upstream to the DSP. And essentially, the whole value chain got flooded with ad requests that they didn't see before, because before it was a waterfall. The reason the curse here is simple. Because of that flood that's happening now, the SSPs and the DSPs just listen to a fraction of the publisher's inventory. That's called throttling. The throttling is essentially a missed revenue opportunities for publishers, because if your inventory is only listened to 25% of the times, 75% of the time it's not listened to, so no monetization is going to happen for those opportunities. And that's what we're trying to combat. And that's why we think supply-side decisioning is super important. And by supply-side decisioning, I don't mean at the SSP level, I mean at the publisher level. And kind of trick the game, essentially, and make sure that essentially we only send to the SSPs what they want to buy and what they deem qualitative inventory. and their perception of quality may be different than the perception publisher have. So what we're building here is Spark is a translation layer that basically takes an impression in and determine who is the most likely buyer for that impression. A bit like Waze. If you think of Waze for traffic routing, we are that same thing for advertising impressions.
Is it a simple concept for you? Obviously, from your point of view, you've been doing this for a long time and building a lot of really cool tech stuff in the media space. To come up with an idea or to visualize what the whole technology ecosystem looks like and then to come up with a solution, is that something that comes easy to you, or do you need to go in and really get into the weeds and spend time talking to people and publishers and agencies?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I think it's an intuition backed by facts afterwards. And also having been in the industry for almost 20 years now gives me a sense of what works, what doesn't. And to me, header bidding is exactly what I said earlier, an opportunity and a curse. So the intuition here is, how can we fix that? And if we do it, how can we do it in a way that's beneficial to the SSPs and to the publishers? And then we had this initial idea that we tested out with the SSPs, and we realized that they actually loved it because they want to receive less traffic of better quality, not more of less quality, but less of more quality. And then it's good for them because if they receive less traffic, they're gonna send less traffic upstream as well. So it's beneficial to the DSP. So when we started to do this analysis, we were like, wow, so we're onto something here. Now, after that, we sat down with the SSPs, the big ones, and we tried to understand what is it that they need in terms of impression, what type of impressions are attractive to them. And then we build those algorithms to, package an inventory that is attractive to them in a way they want to buy it. So it was an intuition, and then it was a collaborative effort in a way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the intelligence aspect of this. I'm talking about how Pubstack talks a lot about the supply side intelligence. For people hearing this phrase for the first time, what does it actually mean in your world, and why does it matter now that AI is increasingly driving media buying decisions?
So, I mean, supply side intelligence is restoring the, as you said, the pendulum is swinging, and in a way it's swinging back to the supply, not entirely, but partly. And supply side intelligence is about two things essentially. It's making sure that the inventory is presented in a way that's palatable to the buy side. So let me give you an example. An example. If you're a publisher, you will probably construct your site along, pages, sections, type of ad units, and all that. Actually, this structure is not necessarily what the buy side wants. What the buy side wants is things like, I want high viewability, or I want a premium context, or I want outcome based on click-through rate. So, whether you structure your website around, sports section, news section, whatever it is, entertainment section, and those type of ad units doesn't really matter to the buy side. So we are reconstructing the inventory on a per impression level with AI to actually drive better outcomes for the SSPs, which in turn drives higher revenue for the publishers. And to do that, we leverage a lot of publisher data that we ingest into our AI decisioning engine to predict what the buyers want to buy for each single impression. I want to stress one point. None of the data that we use is passed, is leaked to the buy side for two reasons. One, some of the signals aren't passable in the bitstream. Like, for example, ad pressure is not a signal that exists in OpenRTB or in Privit. And two, it doesn't really matter whether we pass it because we found a way to package inventory that in a way that is attractive to the SSPs.
Yep, interesting. It's basically visibility. It's a big piece, right? So we talked about supply path optimization, and the complexity of signal loss in that space. How does that play in what we're talking about at the moment for those listening?
So the reason why we have to pass signals upstream is to help the buy side make a decision on those two layers of decisioning I was talking about earlier. Yeah. We've spent an enormous amount of time trying to improve, how many signals we're able to pass into the bitstream and all of that. And it brings some improvements. Let me get it straight out there. But it's not moving the needle big enough. It's not a massive needle mover. What we think is we need to go one step further. And the one step further is if you are an SSP and you want to buy, qualitative inventory. So by qualitative inventory, I'm going to give you an example. If you buy a skyscraper on the page, an SSP knows it's going to be buying a skyscraper, but the SSP has no understanding whether that skyscraper is in a very cluttered page or in a not so cluttered page. In other words, is it exclusive on the page or is it surrounded by 10 other ad units? Obviously, it's not going to drive the same results whether you are in scenario 1 or in scenario 2. That piece of information is missing in the bitstream today. It does not exist. The SSP doesn't have it, the DSP doesn't have it, yet it has a massive impact on the actual campaign performance. These are some of the signals we use to determine whether an impression is of great quality or not so good quality. If an SSP wants to buy a highly viewable impression, we're not just going to measure how viewable that impression is. We're going to take into account the user activity on the page. We're going to take into account how busy the page is to route the traffic towards the SSP and flag it as a highly viewable impression. So the signal loss in itself is an issue, but we stopped fixing it. We found a different way that is way more effective, and we use way more signals than what's available in the bitstream anyway.
Nice. Let's turn our attention to the APAC market. Australia is highly concentrated as far as publishers go, with strong direct sale relationships and growing SSP consolidation pressures. As Pubstack expands into APAC, is the problem you're solving here the same as the one you've got in Europe, or does it show up differently on your radar?
It's a global problem, so it's not a geographical problem. The programmatic value chain is made of the same players globally. It's more acute in certain markets than others. I would say in Australia it's a bit less acute because the Australian market, most publishers have on average between 7 and 10 SSPs. Sorry. In the US or in Europe, I've seen up to 40, even higher, 50.
Wow, that's amazing.
And some of those bidders are actually resellers. So they make this, bid duplication problem I was talking about even a bigger issue. Because imagine if you have 50 SSP on the page, it means that all SSPs are receiving the same ad calls 50 times. The same DSPs are receiving also 50 times. So the threatening issue I was talking about, which is plaguing the industry, is even more acute. So our view is less is more. So the throttling in Australia is probably a bit lower than in other parts of the world, but still it exists. So as long as there's threatening, there's a missed revenue opportunity for the pubs, and that's what we're combating here.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was so high in the US. That's a lot, and obviously the competing bid in that space, as you said, that just the cost on running the platforms to get that winning bid is just got to be almost exponential. Obviously, the publisher and the agency end up paying for that as well, depending on how they who's managing the sale and the buy. There's a version of the future where AI-driven buying systems are making publishers even more marginalized than they are today. What technically or commercially needs to change to stop that from happening?
You mean in an agentic world or in general?
Yeah, let's go down to the agentic level. Yeah.
Agentic is a very interesting beast, and I think it's an opportunity in the long run. I would say, like always, publishers need to have a seat at the table. What I'm seeing right now from most agentic initiatives, they are very much buy-side driven, and they're buy-side driven to lower their cost of operation. Simplify, the insertion order processes and the campaign, execution. What I would like to see, a more publisher-centric version of those agents. I think it's possible. I mean, AdCP is brand new, was launched in October last year. It's already version 3. So, in the lapse of 6 months, there have been already 3 versions. I'm thinking there will be many more. What I would like to see in this agentic world is 2 things. If you think agentic is mimicking a little bit the real life salespeople do 2 things. One thing is they spend their time with their customers, meaning agencies or advertisers, and they present their media kit so that in the hope that in the next brief they will be briefed. So their entire time is dedicated to promoting their media kit, their inventory to the buy side, so that for the next brief they're invited to it. Right? That's a sales job life. If you assume AdCP is kind of mimicking this world, that first part is actually not built in today. There is no way in AdCP today for the publisher to promote their inventory as aggressively as a sales guy would do it with their agency today. And our take at Pubstack is that the supply side decisioning and the data collection will be key in the publisher's success in this agentic world. So agentic is 2 things, is the conversational part between the buyer and the seller. Hey, I have a brief for this, do you have this? Yes or no, kind of. The key is not the conversation part. The key is whether you have the inventory, you know about it, you know how much of it you have, and you know whether you're able to package it dynamically. So for publishers, what's really important here is to answer all those questions I was listing out now. Do I have the inventory? Do I know if I have it? Can I package it immediately on the fly? And can I advertise it to the buyer? That's exactly where we are going. And I think the industry hopefully will put weight into it. Will also reintroduce more supply side view into this agentic new era. If it does, I'm extremely optimistic it's going to yield massive results for the pubs.
When did this pop up on your radar? And to be fair for everyone on this show, Agentic really popped up in my world probably 12 months ago. Like there's sort of talk of it, but it was really not explained in a way that made sense logically. At CP, obviously, as he's just said, it was, I suppose, approved for use of standardization in October last year. On your radar, where did it start popping up and believing that it needed to be a product that to take notice?
It actually popped up last year in Cannes, in June of last year. I sat down with Brian O'Kelly, and he was talking about how could LLMs help out agencies be more efficient, just by literally dumping in plain text a brief into a platform that will spit out a perfect media plan. That's how it became real. Before it was very much ideas. I think he is the first person I've met that had a concrete plan for it. I think it's time to invest in it. I also think it's still in its infancy, so it will take probably 2 to 3 years to become mainstream. But I want to emphasize that today, Agentic is very much buy-side driven. Most of the press releases I have seen, most of the experiments I have seen so far are driven by the buy side to help to alleviate the operational burden. I know some publishers like News Corp in Australia is doing some advanced testing on the supply side, and I think this is great. And I think we need to see more publishers around the world do that. Again, to have a seat at the table, because if the pubs embrace it early, they will see the drawbacks quickly and be able to say, hey, that needs to evolve in this direction and that direction, which I think is a bit lacking for now.
Yeah. It's quite fascinating that you talk about June with Brian having that conversation, and we haven't even reached 12 months.
Yes.
And that it's just exploded onto the industry. The responsibility that particular piece of technology, if you like, has on standardizing the way that we operate in the agentic space is quite fascinating. I think, but curious to see where we are in 12 months' time from now.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, well, that's a crystal ball thing. In 12 months from now, I think Agentic will augment salespeople, not replace them. I think some people are fearing that salespeople will go away. I don't think so. I think it should augment their effort, their sales velocity. It will replace direct IOs. It will also replace possibly some PMPs. I don't know whether that's going to be in 12 months or a bit later down the road. So I think maybe programmatic as we know it today will evolve. The open exchange part will remain, but most of the PMP stuff may actually flip into agentic. So IOs and anything that's in between two parties that's agreed upon will probably be transacted not programmatically, agentically in the future.
Yeah. Well, I think you've actually just touched on the point that I'm fascinated with, the fact that 6 months ago for me, it was, we had programmatic, we had direct, and then all of a sudden, sort of around December, we started talking about a third revenue stream, which is agentic. And it's quite fascinating. I think just the speed that this is evolving and how quickly we're adopting it. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, so you're right. It's actually a third. I'm not exactly sure it's a third revenue stream gonna create more revenue as a whole, but it's definitely a third way of transacting. And correct. For it to survive, if I put myself in the publisher's shoes, it needs to be economically viable. because there's still some work to be done on the supply side for the pubs. I mean, on the publisher side to actually implement it. It's costly. I mean, all the 4 questions I raised earlier require work. That means, preparing the data, forecasting it, being able to predict how much inventory I'm going to have available, blah, blah, blah. So all those things will, based on different signals. So all of those things will require work. It will require work with the salespeople as well. So for this third stream to exist, it needs to be economically viable. And I think, again, if it's only driven by the buy side, they will ignore that. And I think where the publishers need to stand up and say, hey guys, if you want to access our inventory agentically, we need to make it available to you agentically. If it's not available, you've got nothing to buy. So your thing is going to fall flat. And I think that part is a bit missing in the current debate. So yeah, I mean, that's
interesting.
That's where I think it's going to go.
All right. Just before we get to the end of the show, I'm going to bring the old crystal ball out, look the other direction this way. This time, I should say. If you could give yourself some advice all those years ago when you started out your career, what would it be, knowing what we know today?
Well, as an individual, I was a late boomer because I started my first company. I was 39. So I worked more than 15 years before that as an executive, but I started out as an entrepreneur pretty late. So
I love that. Sorry, I'm just going to pull you up. Started late at 39. A lot of people probably wouldn't get to it, but that's right. Yeah.
So if I was talking to my young self, I would say start earlier. I wouldn't say start too young. At least in my case, I did learn a lot of things as an executive before. I learned how to sell, learned how to manage people. I learned finance. I learned, living on different continents. And I did learn all of that before starting my own venture. So, but maybe I could have compressed that period.
Wow. Okay. I'll meet you back a few years earlier. Let's talk. That's very good. All right. It's been wonderful to have a chat with you today, and really appreciate your time.
Likewise.
It's been great. Thank you. Well, look, actually, I want to say when you have your next update around what Pubstack's doing, we'd love to bring you back on the show, because I think you're evolving very quickly into a world that a lot of publishers are very curious to hear what you have to say. So
thank you. Thank you for having me, and happy to share the news.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And for everybody else joining the show today, it's been great to have you on and joining us, whether you're watching us on Apple Podcast or Spotify or on YouTube. We look forward to seeing you next time here on Media Tech Talk.
I'm Joe Lanzarotti, Senior Director of Media Strategy at Cargo.
And I'm Cam Dinny, APAC Director of Strategy and Operations for Cargo.
Join us next on Media Tech Talk as we explore how premium advertising experiences, creativity, connected television, and artificial intelligence are reshaping the future of digital media. From attention metrics and contextual intelligence, through to the evolving relationship between publishers, advertisers, and technology, we'll unpack what's really driving performance in today's advertising ecosystem.
So here's the question. What happens when OpenAI's ChatGPT introduces advertising into its generative responses? Join us in the conversation that's inspiring media minds. That's next on Media Tech Talk.